The email was still open on my laptop when my mother called. "Can you come over?" she asked. "Your father and I need to talk to you. It's important." There was something strange about her voice. Too calm. Normally, when something bad happened, Mom cried before she even finished her first sentence. This time, she sounded rehearsed. I looked back at the screen. "Congratulations, Emily Carter." I'd read those words at least 20 times that morning. I'd been accepted into one of the best business schools in the state. Between scholarships, savings, and the college account my late grandfather had started when I was 6, everything was finally lined up. After years of working weekends at a grocery store, staying up until 2 in the morning studying, and saying no to almost every party my friends went to, I was finally getting out of our tiny hometown. I should have been celebrating. Instead, an hour later, I was pulling into my parents' driveway with a knot in my stomach. The house looked exactly the same. Dad's pickup sat crooked in the driveway. Mom's flower pots lined the porch. The wind chimes Grandpa bought years ago still clinked softly in the breeze. Nothing looked different. But sometimes the worst moments happen in the most ordinary places. Dad opened the door before I could knock. "There you are." His smile lasted less than a second. That was enough to tell me this wasn't going to be good. Inside, Mom had already set 3 glasses of iced tea on the dining room table. She only did that when she wanted conversations to feel civilized. I'd learned long ago that cold drinks usually meant bad news. "Sit down," Dad said. Those 2 words instantly took me back to childhood. Every punishment, every lecture, every disappointment always started with "sit down." I pulled out the chair. No one spoke. Mom kept rubbing the edge of her napkin between her fingers. Dad stared at the table. Finally, Mom took a deep breath. "Emily, something unexpected happened." I waited. "We've had to make a difficult decision." My stomach tightened. "What kind of decision?" She looked at Dad. He looked back at her. Neither wanted to say it. That scared me more than anything. Finally, Mom whispered, "The college money." She stopped. "What about it?" "It's gone." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because my brain refused to understand what she'd just said. "What do you mean, gone?" Dad cleared his throat. "We used it." The room suddenly felt too small. "Used it for what?" Another silence. Then Mom finally said the words that changed everything. "Your brother needed help." For several seconds, I honestly thought she was joking. Ethan was 29 years old. He'd started 3 businesses in 7 years. Every single one had failed. A landscaping company, a sports apparel website, a mobile coffee truck. Each time, my parents convinced themselves the next idea would finally be the one. Each time they emptied another savings account trying to help him. But never had they touched my college fund. At least that's what I'd believed. "How much?" I asked quietly. Dad answered without looking at me. "All of it." The words hit harder than I expected. Not half. Not a loan. Not temporary. Everything. How much was left? About $84,000. I stared at him. $84,000. My grandfather had spent years building that account. Birthday money. Christmas gifts. Investment returns. Every extra dollar he'd ever had. After he died, my parents promised me nothing would ever touch it. "It wasn't an easy decision," Mom said quickly. "Ethan's company was running out of time." I blinked. "What company?" "He started another logistics business." I didn't even know he started another business. He didn't want everyone knowing until things were stable. I almost laughed again. Stable? If it needed $84,000 just to survive, it wasn't stable. It was drowning. "When were you planning to tell me?" Mom looked away. "We were hoping things would improve before college started." "So?" I swallowed hard. "You already spent it." Dad nodded. "A few weeks ago." A few weeks. They had emptied my future, and then spent several weeks pretending nothing had happened. I looked around the dining room. Every birthday, every holiday, every family dinner, all while they already knew. I suddenly felt like I was sitting with strangers. There has to be something left. There isn't. "You borrowed against it?" "No." "You invested it?" "No." So you literally transferred my college fund into Ethan's business? Dad finally met my eyes. Yes. I waited. Surely the apology was coming. Surely someone would say they were sorry. Instead, Mom reached across the table. Sweetheart. She smiled sadly. Families make sacrifices for each other. There it was. The justification. I slowly pulled my acceptance letter from my backpack and laid it on the table between us. I was supposed to move into my dorm in 8 days. I know. I already signed my housing agreement. I know. I already bought books. I know. Each answer felt colder than the last. So, what exactly am I supposed to do now? Mom's voice softened. You could wait a year. Dad nodded. Work for a while. Ethan says once the business turns around, he'll pay everything back. I looked at both of them. Neither of them seemed to realize how impossible that sounded. When has Ethan ever paid anyone back? No one answered. Because they couldn't. His first business had ended in bankruptcy. The second left unpaid suppliers. The third disappeared after 6 months. Every failure somehow became someone else's responsibility. And somehow, mine too. Mom sighed. Your brother has always had big dreams. So do I. Silence. My dream just wasn't important enough. That's not fair, Dad said. Really? I stood up. You emptied the account Grandpa spent almost 20 years building. We're trying to save Ethan. And who is trying to save me? Neither answered. Because there wasn't an answer. Only excuses. Mom stood too. Emily, please don't make this harder. Harder? I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. You already made the hardest decision. She frowned. What do you mean? You decided my future was worth sacrificing. Her face fell. It wasn't like that. Then tell me how it was. She opened her mouth. Closed it again. Nothing came out. Because the truth was painfully simple. When they had to choose between their son and their daughter, they chose him. Every single time. I folded my acceptance letter, slipped it back into my backpack, and picked up my car keys. Dad stepped toward the door. Where are you going? I don't know, Emily. But I do know one thing. I looked at both of them. I'm not staying here pretending this is okay. I walked out before either could stop me. The evening air hit my face like cold water. I sat inside my car for several minutes without starting the engine. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Mom said they're upset. I know you'll understand. Once business picks up, I'll make everything right. I read it twice, then deleted it without replying. For the first time in my life, I realized something that would shape every decision I made afterward. If I kept waiting for my family to choose me, I'd spend the rest of my life waiting. I spent that first night in the parking lot outside a 24-hour grocery store. Not because I had nowhere to go, because I couldn't make myself drive back. Home didn't feel like home anymore. Around midnight, my best friend, Lauren, answered on the second ring. Em, what's wrong? I hadn't planned to cry. But the second I heard her voice, every ounce of strength I'd been holding together disappeared. They took it. What? My college money. Silence. Then, what do you mean they took it? They gave all of it to Ethan. Another long silence. Finally, she whispered, "Come here." Lauren lived in a tiny apartment over a bakery about 40 minutes away. By the time I got there, she already had coffee waiting. She didn't ask 100 questions. She just hugged me. Sometimes that's worth more than advice. After I'd told her everything, she leaned back on the couch. So, what's your plan? I laughed bitterly. I don't have one anymore. You always have a plan. Not this time. She thought for a moment. What if college waits? My scholarship expires next year. What? If I don't enroll this fall, I lose it. She stared at me. They knew that. Yes. And they still spent your money? I nodded. Lauren slowly shook her head. I don't even know what to say. Neither did I. The next morning, I met with the admissions office anyway. Maybe there was some miracle. Maybe financial aid could help. Maybe there was something. Anything. The counselor, Mrs. Watkins, listened carefully while I explained. She looked genuinely heartbroken. I'm so sorry, she said. We can defer your admission. But not the scholarship? She slowly shook her head. I'm afraid not. I already knew the answer before I asked. Still, hearing it made everything real. Walking back across campus, students were carrying boxes into dorms. Parents were helping unload cars. People laughed, took pictures, talked about classes. I should have been one of them. Instead, I stood outside the freshman residence hall watching strangers begin the life I'd spent years working toward. I cried in my car for nearly an hour. Then I wiped my face, started the engine, and drove away. The next few weeks were brutal. I applied for every job I could find. Retail, warehouses, restaurants, delivery services. Eventually, a regional distribution warehouse hired me for the night shift. 10-hour shifts, 5 nights a week. The work was exhausting. By sunrise, my back hurt. My hands were covered in tiny paper cuts from cardboard boxes. Every muscle in my body ached. But every Friday, another paycheck arrived. Small, but mine. Lauren let me rent her spare bedroom until I could afford something else. We agreed I'd pay what I could. No pressure, no deadlines. I promised myself I'd never take advantage of her kindness. Unlike someone else I knew. About a month later, my mother called. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered, "Hi, sweetheart." Her cheerful tone irritated me immediately. "Hi, how are you? Tired? I heard you're working nights." "Yes." "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" I wanted to remind her why I was working nights. Instead, I stayed quiet. After a few seconds, she finally said what she'd really called about. "Ethan's business is doing much better." Of course. Everything somehow came back to Ethan. Good. He wanted me to thank you. I didn't help him. You did. No. You sacrificed for your brother. I closed my eyes. No, Mom. You chose to sacrifice me. Silence. Then she sighed dramatically. I wish you'd stop looking at it that way. How else should I look at it? As family helping family. I couldn't believe we were having this conversation. I never agreed to help. You would've. No. You've always been generous. Being generous requires a choice. Another silence. Then, I hope one day you'll understand. I looked around the warehouse break room. People were eating vending machine dinners, watching television, checking phones, working, living. No one else seemed trapped in conversations like this. I understand perfectly. Then I hung up. The holidays arrived. Thanksgiving. Then Christmas. I skipped both. Not because I hated my family. Because I couldn't sit around pretending everything was normal. Mom left voicemail after voicemail. We miss you. Your father keeps asking about you. Please come home. Not once. Not one single time. Did she apologize? It was always about missing me. Never about why I'd left. Meanwhile, life kept moving. Warehouse work taught me things I'd never expected. Every day, thousands of products came through our facility. Some sold immediately. Others sat untouched for months. I started paying attention. Certain brands always moved. Others came back as returns. Customers constantly complained about the same cheap household organizers. Broken lids. Weak plastic. Poor quality. The complaints never stopped. One night, my supervisor noticed me staring at return labels. You thinking about something? Just wondering why companies keep making the same mistakes. He laughed. Because people keep buying. That sentence stayed with me. People kept buying. Not because the products were good. Because there weren't better options at affordable prices. For weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Eventually, curiosity pushed me to the public library. Every afternoon after work, I'd spend 2 or 3 hours reading. Business books. Marketing books. Supply chains. Manufacturing. E-commerce. Everything. The librarians started recognizing me. One of them smiled every time I walked in. Back again. I still have questions. She laughed. The best students always do. I couldn't afford college anymore. So I built my own classroom. Shelf by shelf. Book by book. Video by video. One evening, Lauren came home carrying takeout. You've got to take a break. I'm researching. You've been researching for 6 straight hours. I'm onto something. She handed me a sandwich. What? I grabbed a notebook filled with messy handwriting. Look. She flipped through pages. Supplier comparisons. Shipping costs. Material quality. Customer reviews. Profit margins. What is all this? I think I know what people actually want. You mean those storage containers you keep talking about? They're all terrible. She laughed. I didn't realize you felt so strongly about plastic bins. It's not about bins. It's about solving a problem. She looked at me for several seconds, then smiled. There you are. What? The Emily I know. What does that mean? The one who refuses to stay down. I hadn't thought about it that way. Maybe she was right. Maybe losing college hadn't destroyed my future. Maybe it had simply forced me onto a different road. I still didn't know where that road ended. But for the first time in months, I actually wanted to find out. As I closed my notebook that night, I made myself one promise. No matter how long it took, I would build something no one could ever take away from me. The first sale came in at 2:17 a.m. I was brushing my teeth before bed when my phone buzzed. New order received. For a second, I honestly thought it was spam. I opened my tiny online store and refreshed the page 3 times. It was real. Someone in Arizona had just bought 2 of my reinforced storage containers. Profit after shipping? $23.80. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Most people would laugh at making less than $24. I didn't, because it wasn't about the money. It was proof that a complete stranger trusted something I had built. The next morning, I packed the order before heading to my warehouse shift. I wrapped it so carefully you'd think it contained diamonds instead of plastic containers. Lauren watched me tape the box shut. You know they'll never know how carefully you packed this. I'll know. She grinned. That's why you're going to make this work. Sales came slowly. 1 order. Then nothing for 3 days. 2 more. Another quiet week. There were moments I wondered if I was wasting my time. Every night after work, I'd photograph products, answer customer messages, update listings, and watch videos about online marketing until my eyes burned. I slept 4 or 5 hours a night. Coffee became its own food group. Still, every little sale felt like another brick in something bigger. Unlike my brother, I wasn't chasing some fantasy. I wasn't trying to become rich overnight. I just wanted steady progress. 1 customer at a time. Around that time, Ethan finally called me himself. I almost didn't answer. Curiosity won. Hey, Em. He sounded cheerful. Too cheerful. Hi. I heard you're doing okay. I'm working. That's good. An awkward silence settled between us. Finally, he cleared his throat. I've been meaning to thank you. For what? For helping save my company. I closed my eyes. Ethan, I know it wasn't your decision, but Mom said you'd understand eventually. No. What? I don't understand. You will. No, I won't. His voice changed. You know how much pressure I've been under. So have I. This business supports 8 families. My education supported 1 future. You can always go to school later. And you can always start another business. Silence. Then he laughed softly. I always knew you were stubborn. No. I'm finally learning the difference between being supportive and being used. He didn't like that. You think everyone's against you. I never said that. You've changed. Maybe I had. Or maybe I'd finally stopped pretending. I have to go. Before hanging up, he said something that stayed with me for months. You'll understand once you own a business. I looked around my tiny apartment at the shelves stacked with inventory waiting to ship. I smiled. If only you knew. 3 months later, something unexpected happened. One of my customers posted a review online. She uploaded pictures comparing my storage containers to a famous brand that cost twice as much. Her review went viral. Thousands of people shared it. Orders exploded overnight. 31 sales. Then 60. Then over 100 in a single weekend. Lauren walked into the living room and stopped. Boxes covered every inch of the floor. You've got to be kidding. I know. No. She laughed. I mean, this is amazing. For 3 straight days, we packed orders until 2 in the morning. When Monday arrived, I went to my warehouse job looking like I'd barely slept. Because I hadn't. During lunch, my supervisor walked over. You look terrible. I've been busy. Doing what? I hesitated. I started a small online business. He smiled. Good. That surprised me. You aren't upset? Why would I be? Some bosses don't like side businesses. He shrugged. As long as you're here when you're scheduled. Then he added something I'd never forget. And when your business gets too big for this place, don't feel guilty about leaving. Those words hit me harder than he probably realized. Growing up, I'd always been told that leaving people behind was selfish. Here was someone telling me the exact opposite. Success wasn't betrayal. Sometimes it was simply growth. 6 months after launching my store, I paid myself my first real paycheck. It wasn't huge, but it covered my rent. For the first time since losing college, I felt financially stable. Not comfortable. Stable. There was a difference. I celebrated by buying Lauren dinner. She raised her glass. To Emily Carter. I laughed. What about me? To the woman who refused to become someone else's backup plan. That toast stayed with me. Because it was true. For years I'd lived as plan B. If Ethan failed, Emily would help. If money was tight, Emily would understand. If sacrifices had to be made, Emily would sacrifice. Not anymore. Spring arrived with another surprise. A small business association invited me to speak about starting an online company with limited money. I almost declined. I'm not successful enough, I told Lauren. She looked around the apartment. Stacks of outgoing orders. Shipping labels. Shelves nearly empty because inventory kept selling. You built this from nothing. I'm still figuring things out. So is everyone. She had a point. The event was held in a hotel conference room. About 50 people attended. I was terrified. My hands shook as I walked to the microphone. Then I stopped trying to sound impressive. I simply told the truth. I talked about working nights, packing boxes on my living room floor, making mistakes, learning from returns, listening to customers. People leaned forward. They weren't interested in perfection. They wanted honesty. Afterwards, several women came up to thank me. One said she'd been too afraid to start. Another said hearing my story gave her confidence. Driving home, I realized something important. Maybe success wasn't just about what I built. Maybe it was about showing other people they could build something too. That summer, my phone rang again. Mom. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. She sounded unusually nervous. Emily. Yes. I was wondering if you could come over this weekend. Why? We just want to see you. I didn't believe that for a second. Families like mine rarely called without a reason. Still, something in her voice felt different. More desperate. Less confident. Before hanging up, she quietly added, Ethan's having a difficult time again. I stared out the apartment window. The old pattern was starting all over again. Only this time, I wasn't the same person who had walked into that dining room a year earlier believing love meant giving away pieces of herself. This time, I had boundaries. And I had a feeling my family was about to discover just how strong those boundaries had become. Almost 2 years had passed since I walked out of my parents' house with nothing but a backpack and a broken dream. In those 2 years, I'd changed more than I had in the previous 20. Not because life had gotten easier. Because it had forced me to grow. My little online business was no longer running from Lauren's apartment. I'd rented a small warehouse on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. The office was barely bigger than a walk-in closet, and the break room consisted of an old coffee maker and 2 folding chairs. But the lease had my name on it. Every shelf, every pallet, every invoice, every customer. It all belonged to me. That mattered more than any fancy office ever could. One Friday afternoon, I was helping unload a shipment when my accountant, Ben, walked into the warehouse. He smiled. I've got good news. I like good news. He handed me a folder. We finally crossed 7 figures. I frowned. What? In annual revenue. I blinked several times. There has to be a mistake. There isn't. He pointed toward the report. You've officially built $1 million company. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Not because I thought I was rich. Revenue wasn't profit. I understood that better than anyone. But seeing that number, it reminded me of the girl who cried in her car outside the college dorm. She thought her future had ended. She had no idea it was just beginning. That evening, Lauren insisted we celebrate. She'd moved into her own apartment months earlier, but we still met every Friday for dinner. She raised her glass. To the girl who wouldn't quit. I laughed. I almost did. But you didn't. No. You know what my favorite part is? What? You never built your business to prove your family wrong. I thought about that. She was right. At first, I'd wanted to succeed because I needed to survive. Later, I kept going because I genuinely loved building something meaningful. Success stopped being revenge. It became freedom. A week later, Rachel called. Rachel was my cousin on Dad's side. Unlike most of the family, she'd never treated me like I was overreacting. She'd quietly checked on me over the years without asking for anything. Hey, stranger. Hey, you busy? Always. I've got news. The tone in her voice made my stomach tighten. What happened? She hesitated. Your parents are selling things. What do you mean? They sold Dad's fishing boat. I stayed quiet. And your mom sold most of her jewelry. Another pause. They're behind on the mortgage. I slowly sat down. What about Ethan? His company isn't doing well. Again. Another business. Another disaster. Rachel sighed. I don't think they know what to do anymore. I stared across my office. Employees were laughing while packing orders. Forklifts moved inventory across the warehouse. Everything around me had been built one careful step at a time. Meanwhile, back home, nothing had changed. They were still betting everything on Ethan. A month later, my mother appeared at my warehouse. Without calling, the receptionist buzzed my office. Emily? Yes, there's a woman here asking for you. Name? Linda Carter. My heart sank. Mom. I walked into the lobby. She looked older than I remembered. Her hair had more gray. Dark circles sat beneath her eyes. For just a second, I felt guilty. Then I remembered sitting at that dining room table. Remembered my acceptance letter. Remembered $84,000 disappearing with one conversation. Hi, Mom. She smiled nervously. I hope I'm not interrupting. I'm working. I'll only take a minute. We sat in the small meeting room. She looked around. You've done well. Business is good. I'm proud of you. Those words should have meant something. Instead, they felt strangely empty. Thank you. She folded her hands. I wanted to apologize. I looked at her carefully. For what? For everything. I waited. She continued. We handled things badly. Yes. We thought Ethan would recover. He didn't. We thought we'd replace your college fund. You didn't. Tears filled her eyes. I know. For the first time. She wasn't making excuses. She was simply telling the truth. I've regretted that decision every day. Part of me wanted to believe her. Another part remembered nearly 2 years of phone calls that always somehow became about Ethan. What changed? She looked down. The bank. I knew exactly what that meant. They're taking the house? Not yet. But they're threatening foreclosure. There it was. The real reason she'd come. Not to apologize. To prepare the conversation. She took a slow breath. I know I don't deserve to ask. My chest tightened. But Ethan needs. I held up my hand. She stopped talking. I knew this wasn't just an apology. It's different this time. No. It really is. It always is. She looked heartbroken. We're desperate. I was desperate too. You don't understand. I leaned forward. No, Mom. You don't understand. I was 18. I lost my education. My future. My trust. And nobody came looking for me. The room became painfully quiet. Finally, she whispered. So, that's your answer? I looked directly into her eyes. My answer is that Ethan doesn't need another rescue. He needs to face the consequences of his decisions. She stood slowly. I was afraid you'd say that. I know. Before leaving, she stopped at the door. I do love you. I believed her. That was the hardest part. I know you do. Love wasn't the problem. choices were. 3 weeks later, Rachel called again. This time you're really going to want to sit down. I laughed. That sounds familiar. Ethan's company filed for bankruptcy. I closed my eyes. Again. The second company. Gone. What about my parents? They're in serious trouble. How serious? Rachel hesitated. They've borrowed money from almost everyone. Family. Friends. Neighbors. They're running out of options. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel vindicated. Mostly, I felt tired. It was exhausting watching people repeat the same mistake over and over while refusing to admit the first one had been a mistake. That night, I locked up the warehouse and sat alone in my office. On the wall hung the framed copy of my very first customer order. $23.80. It reminded me how far I'd come. Not because someone rescued me, because no one did. And somehow, that became my greatest advantage. As I turned off the office lights, my phone buzzed again. A text from Rachel. The family is planning a reunion next month. Everyone's expected to be there. I think your parents are hoping you'll come. I stared at the message. Something told me this wasn't really a family reunion. It felt like the beginning of something else. Something they'd been planning for a long time. And deep down, I already knew exactly who they expected to solve their problems. The reunion ended, but the silence followed me all the way home. I drove with the radio off, letting the quiet settle around me. The highway stretched out under the fading orange sky, and for the first time in years, I wasn't replaying an argument in my head. I wasn't wondering if I'd said the wrong thing or if I should have been more understanding. I had spoken honestly. Nothing more. Nothing less. When I reached my apartment, I tossed my keys onto the kitchen counter and noticed 3 missed calls. All from Mom. I sighed. Part of me wanted to ignore them. Another part knew that avoiding difficult conversations had never solved anything. I called her back. She answered before the first ring finished. Emily? Hi, Mom. There was a long pause. I've been thinking about what you said. So have I. I don't know how we got here. Neither did I. Or maybe I did. One small decision at a time. One excuse after another. One sacrifice always expected from the same person. Finally, she whispered, "Your father hasn't stopped crying." That surprised me. Dad wasn't a man who cried. Not when Grandpa died. Not when he lost his job years ago. Not even when Ethan's first company failed. What happened? He said he spent 20 years trying to build a future for this family, and somehow managed to destroy the future of the child who never asked for anything. I closed my eyes. Those words hurt more than I expected. Not because they erased the past. Because they acknowledged it. "I'm sorry," Mom said quietly. "I know." "No, you don't." Her voice cracked. "I'm not sorry because things didn't work out. I'm sorry because I never stopped to ask what it cost you." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Sometimes apologies arrive years late. But late is still better than never. A week later, I was back at work preparing for one of the biggest product launches our company had ever attempted. The warehouse buzzed with activity. Forklifts moved pallets. Packing stations were overflowing. Phones rang nonstop. Ben walked into my office carrying a folder. "You've got a problem." I laughed. "Only one." He smiled. "A good problem." He handed me the report. "We're outgrowing this building." I stared at the numbers. Orders had increased almost 40% over the previous quarter. Retailers from 3 new states wanted to carry our products. For years, I dreamed about this moment. Now it was here. "We need a bigger facility." "I know. And probably 20 more employees." "I know. And," he grinned, "I think it's finally time you hired a real CEO." I looked at him. "Are you firing me?" He laughed. "I'm trying to save you." He wasn't wrong. For years, I'd insisted on approving everything personally. Every shipment. Every design. Every customer complaint. Every hiring decision. Somewhere along the way, I'd become the bottleneck. Growth required trust. Something I'd spent years learning. That afternoon, Lauren stopped by with lunch. She noticed the blueprints spread across my desk. "Expansion? Looks like it." She smiled proudly. Remember when your entire warehouse fit inside my spare bedroom? I remember tripping over inventory every morning. You still owe me for all those cardboard paper cuts. I thought pizza covered that. She laughed. Not even close. She looked around the office. You've built something incredible. I shook my head. We built it. She frowned. I just let you stay with me. You believed in me before I believed in myself. She smiled softly. You know, I've always wondered something. What? If your parents had never taken the college money, do you think your life would have turned out better? I leaned back in my chair. It was a question I'd asked myself hundreds of times. Finally, I answered. No. She looked surprised. Really? I would have graduated, gotten a good job, probably worked for someone else. But losing everything forced me to discover what I was actually capable of. I paused. I still wish they hadn't done it. But I don't wish away the woman it forced me to become. Lauren smiled. I like her. I do too. 2 months later, the phone rang again. This time it was Ethan. His voice sounded different. Quieter. Less certain. Hey. Hi. I wanted to tell you something. I'm listening. I got a job. I smiled. Congratulations. It's just operations management at a manufacturing company. That's not just anything. I almost turned it down. Why? He laughed awkwardly. I kept thinking I was supposed to be the boss. And then I realized, maybe I need to learn how to be a good employee before I ever try leading people again. That was probably the wisest thing I'd ever heard him say. I'm proud of you. There was another silence. You know, I used to think you were lucky. I frowned. Lucky? Yeah. I thought everything came easy for you. I couldn't help laughing. Ethan. I know. I was wrong. I never saw the nights you worked. The sacrifices. The loneliness. I only saw the result. His voice became emotional. I owe you more than an apology. You don't owe me anything. I do. No. You owe yourself the better future. Start there. 3 months later, our company broke ground on a new headquarters. Nothing extravagant. Just a practical building designed for the next chapter. The mayor attended the ceremony. Local newspapers covered the event. Someone handed me a gold-colored shovel for the photo. As cameras flashed, I remembered standing in a warehouse loading trucks for minimum wage. Funny how life changes. Not overnight, but one decision at a time. After the ceremony, I noticed an older woman standing near the back of the crowd. Mom. She hadn't told me she was coming. She waited until everyone else left before walking over. I hope you don't mind. I don't. She looked at the construction site. Your grandfather would have loved this. I smiled. I think so too. She reached into her purse. I found something. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a faded photograph. Me, about 8 years old, sitting beside Grandpa at a picnic table. The back contained a handwritten note. She asks more questions than anyone I know. One day she'll build something important. I stared at the handwriting. Grandpa's. Mom quietly said, "He always believed in you." So did you. She shook her head. I should have trusted that belief more. I slipped the photograph back into the envelope. Thank you. Before leaving, she hugged me. No requests. No guilt. Just a mother hugging her daughter. Sometimes healing begins with moments that small. 3 years later, I unlocked the front door of our new headquarters before anyone else arrived. I liked being there early. Before the phones rang. Before forklifts started moving. Before the warehouse echoed with voices and the steady rhythm of another busy day. There was something peaceful about an empty building. It reminded me of those mornings years ago when it had been just me, a folding table, a borrowed laptop, and a dream nobody else could see. I walked through the lobby, where our company logo hung on a polished wood wall. Employees often told me how proud they felt working there. Every time they said it, I smiled. Not because of the building. Because I remembered what it felt like to have someone else decide your future for you. I had promised myself that if I ever built a company, people would leave work feeling respected instead of disposable. That promise became part of everything we did. We paid fair wages. We promoted from within. We offered flexible schedules for parents. We even created an education reimbursement program for employees who wanted to finish college. Whenever someone asked why I spent so much money on those benefits, my answer was always the same. Opportunity changed my life. I just had to build it myself. One Monday morning, my assistant knocked gently on my office door. "Emily, come in. You have a visitor." "I don't have any appointments." "He says he's family." I already knew. Ethan. He stood in the lobby wearing jeans and a plain blue work shirt. No expensive watch. No designer shoes. No confidence that bordered on arrogance. Just my brother. Older. Calmer. More humble than I'd ever seen him. "You've got quite a place," he said. "Thanks. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." "I wasn't sure either." He laughed quietly. "Fair enough." I invited him into my office. For a few moments, we simply looked around. Family has a strange way of filling silence. Eventually, he spoke. "I brought something." He placed a small notebook on my desk. Inside were pages filled with handwritten notes. Budgets. Financial plans. Business classes he'd completed. Certificates from leadership workshops. Personal goals. "I've been taking those courses you recommended." I flipped through the pages. Every assignment had been completed. Every workbook filled out. "You actually did it." "I told you I would." He smiled sheepishly. It turns out learning isn't as exciting as chasing million-dollar ideas. But it works better. We both laughed. Then his expression became serious. "I came because I wanted you to know something." "I'm listening." "I don't want money." I figured. I wanted to say thank you. For what? For saying no. That wasn't the answer I expected. If you'd rescued me, I'd probably still be making the same mistakes. He looked around my office. "You gave me something better. You forced me to grow up." I leaned back in my chair. "You did that yourself." "Maybe. But you were the first person who stopped confusing love with rescue." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Ethan reached across the desk. "I'm proud of you, Em." It was the first time in our lives we'd spoken as equals. No golden child. No forgotten child. Just a brother and sister who had finally become adults. That Thanksgiving, I went home for dinner. Really home. The old house was gone. My parents now lived in a modest 2-bedroom place on a quiet street. It wasn't large, but it was warm, comfortable. Most importantly, it belonged to them. No risky loans. No second mortgages. No impossible dreams hanging over the roof. Mom greeted me with the biggest hug she'd ever given me. Dad stood awkwardly in the hallway. He'd never been good with emotions. Finally, he cleared his throat. "I've got something for you." He handed me a small wooden box. Inside lay my grandfather's old fountain pen. I stared at it. I thought this was lost. So did I. Dad smiled sadly. "I found it while cleaning the garage." He took a slow breath. "Your grandfather used to tell me something." "What?" he said. "Don't measure your children by who needs you the most." Dad looked down. I didn't understand what he meant. His voice cracked. I do now. For the first time in years, I saw tears running down my father's face. Not because he wanted something. Because he finally understood what he'd done. "I can't give you back those years." "I know. I can't replace what you lost." "I know. But if I could go back, I'd choose differently." I believed him. That didn't erase the past. Nothing ever could. But healing isn't about changing yesterday. It's about choosing tomorrow. As dinner ended, Mom brought out dessert. Everyone laughed as Ethan accidentally dropped a spoon onto the floor. For once, the conversation wasn't about businesses, or money, or saving someone. We talked about vacations, movies, recipes, normal things. It felt healthy, not perfect. Healthy. There's a difference. A few months later, our company announced a new scholarship fund. Reporters asked why. I stood behind the podium, looking out at students and parents filling the auditorium. "I know what it feels like to believe your future disappeared overnight." The room became quiet. "I also know that talent doesn't disappear just because money does." I explained that the scholarship would help students whose education had been interrupted by family hardship. No essays about tragedy. No publicity stunts. Just opportunity. After the ceremony, a teenage girl approached me. She looked nervous. I almost dropped out. I'm glad you didn't. My mom said I should thank you. She hugged me. You'll never know what this means. Actually, I did. Better than anyone. Years passed. The business continued growing. Not explosively. Steadily. The way healthy things grow. Lauren eventually became our director of community programs. She often joked that letting me sleep in her spare room had turned into the best investment she'd ever made. We still laughed about cardboard boxes and frozen pizzas from those early days. Some memories become sweeter with time. One Saturday morning, I visited Grandpa's grave. I'd brought fresh flowers. I sat on the grass for a long time without saying anything. Finally, I smiled. You were right. The breeze moved softly through the trees. I built something important. Not just a business. A life. One built on honesty, hard work, boundaries, and second chances that were earned, not bought. As I stood to leave, I thought about the young woman who once believed losing her college fund meant losing her future. She couldn't have imagined this life. She couldn't have imagined peace. If I could have spoken to that frightened 18-year-old version of myself, I know exactly what I would have said. Keep going. The people who underestimate you don't get to decide how your story ends. They never did. And they never will.